The East African tradition of the Maasai tribe is to greet one another with the words Kasirian Ngera, which is Swahili for, so how are the children? In that community, the well-being of their children is the highest priority. If you are interested in participating in thought-provoking conversations about the well-being of children and families, please tune in every Wednesday at 3 p.m. to Fresh Start Today on 860 AM WNOV. Together, we can save our children. Good afternoon. You're listening to Fresh Start in the spirit of honoring the great legacy of the Dr. Martin Luther King. Just wanted to play that little piece, oh freedom over me. Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to be at rest with my Lord. But anyway, we're talking today about a very important topic, talking about freedom. We were talking about what's going on between black parents and child welfare. Our topic today is taken. Black families under siege. Now, I'm talking about something that's not just an issue in a lot of folks' minds locally, but what's going on nationally. So let's say that word together, nationally. Not just what's going on in Wisconsin or in Milwaukee County, but what's going on nationally. But locally, according to the Wisconsin Children and Out-of-Home Care report that the Department of Children and Families produced for 2014, which is the most recent report, black children comprised 68.2%. Let me say that number again. 68.2% of the children who were placed in foster care on December the 31st, 2014. What that says, and you have to go back and look at the previous reports that were published by the Department of Children and Families, that on any given day, on any given 365 days, sometimes 366, on any given day, that approximately 70% of the children who are placed in foster care, or who are in foster care, let me correct that, who are in foster care, are African American. Now, if that doesn't concern you, if that doesn't ruffle your feathers or even raise some questions in your mind about the causal factors, how can that be? First, let me say this. Now, there's a disclaimer. Let me say this. That 68.2% is going to consist of folks who voluntarily place their children in the system. However, that voluntary placement percentage pales in comparison to the overwhelming number of children who are taken from their families. We are delighted to have in the studio with us, I forgot your alias, Miss Ann. How you doing, Miss Ann? How you got to speak into the mic. I want you to speak up. I want you to be courageous.
My name is Miss Ann.
Miss Ann. All right. We're going to hear a little bit about your story in a minute, Miss Ann, but I just want you just to breathe, to relax, because you are amongst friends. Your community that you're part of, we love you and we love your children.
That's right.
Then we have a therapist from New Choices. Miss Leola Williams, who's a therapist, and she's worked on a number of cases with parents whose children are involved in the child welfare system. Good afternoon, Miss Leola Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone, and the audience.
Hey,
nice
now
to be
listen.
here again.
Now, I do want people to call into the show today because I need to know if this show is of any value. Are we wasting time and money coming in here, or do you all value this program? If so, please give us a call today at 414-444-5250. 414-444-5250. My co-host is over there, Mr. Shad Roby. How you doing, Mr. Roby?
Good afternoon. And I just want to add something really quick. When you talk about approximately 70% of the children in out-of-home care, if you have $10 and you got 70% of that $10, you got most of it. And if you want to look at it from that small aspect, you have most of that.
That's huge.
That's a lot of money when you only got 10.
Right. So, almost 70%. Now, we're going to talk about this because there's a lot of causal factors. Some folk argue that race and racism and power and privilege and class has nothing to do, or very little to do, with the number of black children who are in our local foster care system. However, there's some other folks who say, yes, that racism and lack of cultural competence and bias, that those are some major factors. You know, the goal of this program is to create a safe space to engage in hard conversations. And so I want people to just think about 70%. Now there's 2,276 children in foster care on December 31st, 2014. And 1,553 of those were black children, 589 were Caucasian children. That is concerning. Yeah. Now, that's my segue into, because you know that the Bureau of Milwaukee Child Welfare has changed their name. They're no longer the Bureau of Milwaukee Child Welfare. The same players, but a different name. That's almost like Bruce Jenner being or transform into, is it Caitlyn Jenner?
Caitlyn
Jenner.
Or is it Kate? I don't know.
Caitlyn.
Same person. Mm-hmm. Same fingerprint. Mm-hmm. Same blood type. Same height. So when we look at this, that division is now, the Bureau of Milwaukee Child Welfare is now the Division of Milwaukee Child Protective Services, DMCPS, for those who didn't know that. Well, for a long time since Arlene Happick left her director's position, that position has pretty much been vacant. Mm-hmm. Now we have an interim, Mary Pat Boone. You all write these names down. These people are the key players. You need to know who the secretary of the department is, Miss Eloise Anderson. Freddie Boone is right up under her. Bove is right up under her. Freddie Ellen Bove. Those are your Madison folk. But locally is Mary Pat Boone. These are some key players who play a very important role in how foster care is practiced, the policies that are developed. And when we look at the Division of Milwaukee Child Protective Service, that position is open. When we look at this number, 68.2%, let's just say 70% for sake of conversation. Mm-hmm. 70%. I would think that whoever they hire for this position, the first thing they need to find out, what is going to be your administrative executive plan to reduce the number safely, responsibly reduce that number from 70% perhaps down to 25, 26% like black children's counters. It can be done if it is a department and division priority.
Value.
It's about what we value. Mm-hmm. But my question today that we need to talk about, and I have this author that's going to be at the Color Child Welfare Conference. She wrote a book by the name of Brandy Nicole Brooks. The title of the book is Black Single Mothers and the Child Welfare System. That's a hot topic. It's a topic that we don't want to talk about, but we're going to delve into that today.
I think one of the reasons we don't like to talk about it because of fear. Some of the people that's already in the system, they're afraid to speak up and speak out.
And that's true, because we had a young lady that was supposed to be here today who has a very profound story. And it was just, it was by, I guess, by divine orchestration that Miss Ann contacted me by somebody that she knew, and her story pretty much mirrored what the other young lady was going to come on the show and talk about. before we go any further, because my question is going to be to this audience, as well as to Miss Ann and to Miss Leola, is whether or not black mothers and children are targeted for being involved in the child welfare system. But before you all answer that, Miss Ann, why don't you give me a little story, just a little synopsis. Don't mention anybody's name. I don't want to hear about this agency or that agency, but child welfare, okay? You don't have to name a therapist. You don't have to give your children's name. But just tell me just a general information about your case, because we have not had an opportunity to talk at length. So go ahead. Speak up.
My first child was removed. She was removed from the group home. She was removed from the group home that I was in.
So you're in a group home, which means you were in out-of-home care at one point.
Yes.
All right, Miss Ann. Keep going.
And when she was removed, I was arguing with a case. I mean, I was already arguing with a social worker at the group home, and they basically was saying that I was verbally abusive to my first daughter, so they removed her because I was arguing and, you know, getting into arguments with the case manager at the group home already, the social worker that's already at the group home, but she wasn't from Milwaukee, she was from Madison. But when she would come, she would pick at me and start arguments with me about me not being able to be in my room during the day with my child. So we would be arguing about that, and then to one day when my 18th birthday, when it's time for me to age out of the group home, my baby was 6 months at the time, they came and removed her.
For your birthday gift?
Yes. They came and removed her out of the home. They had 2 officers came and they came and removed her out of the home. And
on what basis? Just that you were arguing?
Verbally abused.
That you were verbally abusive to your 6-month-old baby, and on right before your 18th birthday?
Yes.
They came, or it was your 18th birthday?
It was my 18th birthday.
And so you would have legally aged out of the system that day.
Yes.
And so to ensure that the child didn't leave with you, they orchestrated something so that the child could be removed on your birthday.
Yes, and they also said that I was a poor mom and I didn't have nowhere to go. So that was another reason why they removed her.
Did your case manager or anyone talk to you about the plan to remove your child on your 18th birthday?
They talked about it, but they didn't say that she was getting removed. They just said if there's anybody that I can go stay with, and I'm like, no, I don't really have nobody to go stay with. And now they made me think that I was finna be into independent living, transitional living with my child, but that was not the plans for them, but that was the plans for me.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, let's put a pin right there because I have a guest on the line, Attorney Jane. Good afternoon, Attorney Jane.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Attorney Jane is an ally of Fresh Start. Been knowing Attorney Jane for at least 10 years of working in child welfare, and she agreed today to come on the show on the spur of the moment. So this is not rehearsed at all, but there are some interesting things. I thought she'd bring interesting perspective to this. Now, let me say this, and I say this for the audience. Attorney Jane is a former, initial assessment worker?
I was an ongoing case manager.
You're an ongoing case? You didn't. So you didn't work.
I also did an initial assessment.
But okay, so you're an initial assessment worker. And the initial assessment worker is the person that, when there is a report of abuse or neglect, you will go out to assess the home for safety.
Yes.
Okay. And if it's not safe, then that person in that position will make the determination to remove the child and place them into foster care.
Or with a family member.
Well,
or with a family member.
After doing an assessment and consulting with a supervisor about whether or not the home was stable enough to put safety services or some in-home services in place to try to keep the children in the home, if that wasn't an option, then a supervisor would make the decision to remove a child.
When you were working in initial assessment in the county that you are working in, and we won't disclose the county, but what percentage of your caseload do you think represented African-American children? Or the homes, the calls that you responded to?
I mean, it's okay to say I was a Milwaukee County social worker.
Okay. So you're familiar with how the system during that time was operating. Okay.
Because I think that that's the only, I mean, the population that I worked with was overwhelmingly black. So I don't really think there's anywhere else in Wisconsin that I can say that about. So, yes, I was on the north side of Milwaukee. I had grown up in a really white community and hadn't been around a lot of people of color. However, I had some friends from college.
Okay.
Do you want me to continue? Or
sure. Give about who you are in the work. Yeah, keep talking.
Well, I mean, I know that there's been, you had mentioned earlier on your show that 70% of the population involved with child welfare is black. And that was predominantly my caseload in Milwaukee. And coming from a pretty white background, I had some things to learn as a young 22, 23-year-old social worker without any kids.
That's powerful. So right there, let's pause there for a minute. Do you think there's a lot of young white female social workers who come from different communities, different backgrounds, have different experiences because of how they've been parented, and they are placed or assigned caseloads of predominantly black families? Do you think that the system did a good job of preparing you and workers who look like you and how to be culturally responsive to these families, and the fact that you had no kids of your own?
Well, social work is a learning profession, just like law or the medical field. Starting out as a 22-year-old, I mean, I had to take some social work classes regarding cultural competence, but that's an idea, really, when you're going to school in Madison, and even the social work experience that you get here as an intern is with white people. At least back then it was.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd never been really in a room where I was the only white person, or maybe one other person who was white. I didn't, other than what I read in books, didn't know much at all about the black culture or any other culture.
So they would give you a certificate to train you or to build your competence.
Right, but that reading can only take you so far. You have to have experience. And for all the white people that want to just say,
just
yeah,
speak freely.
I'm not, huh?
What they say, oh, yeah, what?
Oh, I was just going to say, for all the white people that want to just say, oh, I'm not racist, or I know about black people because I have, a black friend or two. It doesn't work like that. It was actually, it's interesting because I think that after having a little bit of study and then going and being immersed essentially in black culture and in the child welfare system, and in Milwaukee in particular, which has its own issues. I then went on to do some further studying and read several books. I had no idea why they only teach about slavery in white history classes. And I read this book called Slavery by Another Name. And it talks about how black people have been treated since, the Civil War, since they gained freedom, until World War II. And I had no idea about the forced laboring and how terrible things were. And just now even looking how, I mean, it's still, then you have a new Jim Crow now. And I read another book called Why Do All the Black Kids Sit Together in the Cafeteria? And it's about racial identity development. And just then having to do reflection and actually take some of those ideas and implement them.
So let me ask you, because you said a couple of things, and I'm wondering at some point if you can answer, how did reading those books help you in your profession in terms of how you deliver services? But before you answer that, I want to kind of go back to being 22 years old, being 23 years old, working with a group of people that you didn't know much about. What they taught you in your classes about them, their point of origination or origin came from slavery, or slavery is their point of origin. Do you think that what's being taught in social work classes, in social studies, or your college level courses about black people created some misperceptions or some preconceived notions about them before even engaging with them?
No, I mean, as far as in my social work classes, I think they're intended to do the opposite. I was 20, I think, and I had a sociology assignment where there were a few different options that we could do. One of them was to act like you were a homeless person and that you were at a grocery store, like you were going to steal something. And then another option was to go somewhere where you were the minority. So essentially, black people often daily could be in a room or be the only person or one of a couple people of color in a room, where I, as a white person, don't ever experience that really. At least I didn't unless until becoming a social worker. I guess I would only choose to be in that situation.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that until this assignment where they said to go somewhere, and I went to a black church. And
what happened when you went to the black church? What happened?
Oh, my God, it was awesome.
Did you catch the spirit?
Did you say it was awesome?
But, yeah, I mean, you look around, and I think there were, like, 2 other white people there besides me and my friend. But everybody was so welcoming, and I wasn't treated like I was white or that I was treated any different.
Okay, so let's go back to your role as initial assessment worker. So you started out as initial assessment worker, and then you worked as an ongoing case management, because at some point, after someone makes a determination that a child should be removed and placed into care, the case switches over to what we call ongoing, right?
Right.
So talk about your role as an ongoing case manager and working with black families, and particularly by being Caucasian. Were you ever afraid to be in certain communities, certain neighborhoods? What was your perception of black males or fathers? What was your perception? Was it the common myths that some folks have about black mothers as being, the welfare queen or the sapphire or what's a mammy? That's some historical titles that, they used to give to black people.
If she read that slavery book, it probably would have mentioned that.
Yeah. So it probably was there. So did you have some fear, or did you feel that you were operating from a deficit? Were there challenges? Were you ever concerned that, wow, if I say this child needs to be in foster care, or this child should not go back home, that you felt that folks would say, well, this is just a white woman or white girl saying this, and it's just perpetuating this high number or volume of children who are coming into care. It's fueling that. So can you answer that?
Okay, well, Jermaine, I think I like to think of myself as as
culturally
not racist, but
Okay.
also more that I am culturally competent and culturally aware. And I enjoy talking about race, particularly when there are other white people involved.
And what did those
because
conversations look like? What was the response of other? Because my feel is that in child welfare, and let's bring it home, in Milwaukee, we cannot talk openly about race, racism, class, white privilege without people feel threatened. And then I become the angry black man, or there's the angry black woman, or there's, this white woman, she just a so-and-so lover, or she's not one of us. It's a very uncomfortable topic. So when you say that you used to have conversations with other white people who work in child welfare, what did that look like? What were their responses?
Well, it's not even with other white people
Okay.
in child welfare, Jermaine. I mean, just in general.
Okay.
There's too many white people are oblivious to their white privilege. And I understand very much that black people can't bring up, race, because then there's playing the race card. I struggle, though, somewhat, because, like I said, I like to think that I'm very aware of things. But then, there's certain social people in social work who, in child welfare, in Milwaukee, who think that a white person that's doing a child abuse investigation just wants to take black babies out of the home and have them be adopted out.
Well, there's people who believe that.
Huh?
But there's people that believe that because, like in the case...
Oh, right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, right. I understand that. But I think culturally, there's a difference in maybe how can I say this? I understand it's lawful for people to use physical discipline. Sometimes it gets out of control and kids get hurt.
And those children should not be in the care of their parent if they are being physically abused and or neglected.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But some people who are black, or other social workers, I've found seemed what I thought to minimize injuries or neglect, to want to try to prevent removal of a kid. And then you would kind of get attacked as a white social worker. So that was kind of uncomfortable.
I'm not sure if I understood that. So you're saying that if you assess a child and determine that there was physical abuse, or the physical abuse was minimized or downgraded, that...
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I once had somebody say to me, after looking at significant bruising all over the backside of a child, that, it's not that bad. It only looks bad because he's light-skinned. And this kid couldn't sit down. He had been beaten with a belt repeatedly without clothes on.
Right.
And that shouldn't be about color of a skin. The kid was injured.
Okay. The child was in danger. But does race, and I agree with you there, if that child was physically abused, that child need to be protected. Meaning removed from that parent and possibly, hopefully placed with family members or even folks within their community that's culturally competent. But does race come into play, race and racism come into play when it comes to removing black children from their families? Because we can't remove based on poverty. They say, the books say, federal language and legislation says that we cannot remove children based on poverty. So if we're not removing based on poverty, what are we removing them from if it's not abuse? And and the National Incident Study number 4 indicates that black families do not abuse their children more than white families, Hispanic families, Asian families, etc. So if it's not poverty, and if it's not physical abuse, what is lending to the number or contributing to the number, the high number of black children coming into the system at the rate they are?
I think, so in Milwaukee, so there's a fine line with what's poverty and what's neglect.
Okay. Help us, educate us.
So, poverty, you can be poor and still keep a clean house that doesn't have roaches. That is safe for a child, and you're not being.
So if the house have roaches, that's reason to remove a kid.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, because if that's the case, I should have been in, because I remember the little brown roaches running around. But keep going.
But I'm just saying, you can be poor. I mean, no, you're not going to get, unless the kid maybe has severe asthma that's not being taken care of. And
okay. That creates a safety, yes.
It's more of a health issue, and then there's the roaches on top of that. Then that could maybe be an issue. But in general, I just know. I mean, when somebody's addicted to crack and they can't keep food in the house and their plumbing is broken and the kids are left home for a couple days in a row and the baby's bottles are nasty.
Well, we got to talk about heroin then, because if we want to talk about drug addiction, when we talk about drug addiction, because there's research and data that shows that white families use drugs at a higher rate or more frequency than black families. So it can't be about drug use.
Okay, right. There's very functional. There's functional users.
Functional,
sure.
Right. But what I'm saying is, there is concern. There is genuine concern from this community about the number of black children being removed from their homes and then parents fighting like hell to get their kids back, and placement dates being pushed back, like in the case of Miss Ann, being told your kids coming home, then they're not coming home. Your child was removed at birth, right?
Or was after my first child was placed with
Speak
dad.
to the microphone so the community can hear you.
After my first child ended up being placed with dad, and I had another child after that. That child was removed, and then I had another child after that. Both of them was removed at birth right after I had
How much support did the system give you in preparing you for independence? Because if you had already been in the system, you know, it seemed like because you have a relationship or should have had a positive working relationship with a system that removed you from a situation that was compromised, that we're going to be a better community parent to you than your natural parent. And you know, that goes to the mindset that some folks feel if you research it out, that a lot of folks feel that child welfare comes into, their mission is to rescue and to save black children, Hispanic children, even white children from their parents. So I'm thinking that if we remove you, if the system removes you, that they will do whatever it takes to make sure that you are self-sufficient, that you can, you know, can you go back and get some support, or just your 18th birthday, you're out the door, good riddance, hope you have good, and we're taking your baby on your birthday too, by the way.
Right, and that's one of my issues here, because being in a group home and you're already being placed in a place where you were supposed to get the structure and the support that you needed, because before they transferred her out, they should have had an independent place
and even a transition
set up.
Right.
She should have gone on, and then there should have been services put in place to help her with her child in the beginning.
But we have this piece where, and then another element here is that, and I'm just talking about what I hear every day. See, I'm going to say what some people think, but they're afraid to say, that some black people in your situation, the young lady that's supposed to be here today, another young lady I spoke to last week, and there was a case, if you go into the paper 2006, Mr. I'm calling him LaFleur. If you go back and you look that up in the Journal Sentinel, where this father tried to get his son. But they were with white families, and those families retained attorneys, and those black parents were having a hard time fighting the system
They
to
did the
get.
same thing with me.
They did what?
They hired a private attorney with me too.
Who is they?
The foster parents.
Now these are black foster parents, white foster parents.
They're
Whatever.
white
Okay.
foster parents.
And some folk, and I've seen it with my own two brown eyes, is that you can have a parent who is trying, who's meeting the court order conditions. What are some of the court order conditions?
They asked me to complete a psychological evaluation. I completed a psychological evaluation, a psychiatric evaluation, a 10-week parenting class, a 6-week anger management class, and therapy with DV included.
And you completed those and still was not good enough.
No.
Okay, well, hold it right there because we have Mrs. Adams on the phone. Mrs. Adams, good afternoon. You're listening to Fresh Start Today. Do you have a brief question or comment as it relates to this conversation?
Yes, first of all, you should stay on the radio. That's what I wanted to get cleared up, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, the second thing is that when I worked in the school system a while ago, a lot of the kids got taken out of the school system because the children would come into school and they would report to the teachers, and the teachers were required to report that.
Yep.
And some kids would also be telling the parents, "I'm going to say this to the teacher," and that if the parents chastised them, and it wasn't really, they really hadn't been chastised, and so but the teachers would have to report this. So a lot of kids were taken out of the home from the school system, and many times, I guess the teachers, if they did take them out, they should have. If the kids did go to school saying this, they should have tried to work with the parents too, I think. And so that's all I was saying. But yes, you should definitely stay on the radio, okay?
All right. And Miss Adams, we need, and that whole thing about the role that school, which is mandatory reporters in the school, the medical community, and law enforcement, those three communities make the highest number of referrals to CPS. And the lady that was supposed to be on the program today, she talked about how her child was taken at birth. Well, not at birth. I'll take it back. 3 months, and she had gave the child some milk. Formula. And the baby had an allergic reaction. And then they discovered that the baby had a head fraction, but it was an old head fraction, but it was related supposedly, because I don't know the case intimately, but it was related supposedly to the hard delivery that she had, and she had to get in contact with the pediatrician or whoever delivers babies. And then you still got to fight to get your kids back.
Yes.
So, Ms. Adams, I'm going to have to let you go, but if other folks want to call and join into this conversation, we're so grateful to have Attorney Jane on the line with us. Please call 414-444-5250. Hope you are enjoying this program. Hope it's informative. The first thing I need to do, because I know I have folk who monitor and listen to the program, they're our friends, and I want to make sure that I get some educational stuff in here.
And you know what, while you're
No. The child welfare system, let me define what that is so everybody can be clear about what the child welfare system is a group of services designed to promote the well-being of children, to support or promote the well-being of children. Then we have to ask ourselves, how well are children doing while in the system and when they exit care? Now, that's okay. By ensuring safety, achieving permanency, and strengthening families to care for their children's success. We have to show you how to care and parent your children successfully. By whose standards? Attorney Jane. Jane, let me ask you this. Do you think the parenting model that is used or upheld in child welfare is based on a middle white class parenting model, or is it reflective or incorporates some of the cultural pieces from the families in the communities by which it serves?
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by parenting model.
Well, we have standards around parenting. So if they're going to send somebody to a parenting class or say that, you know what, you haven't parented your kid successfully, or we're going to remove your kid and you have to go to parenting classes, what is that standard, that construct? What's the criteria?
It's interesting, Jermaine, and I got to be honest with you.
Please do.
I don't know what they're supposed to be learning in those parenting classes, and I'm not even sure that they...
the curriculum? Yeah.
Yeah, that there's any kind of...
But it's a condition.
Study or anything done to determine whether or not taking parenting classes improves parenting or not? I mean, I would imagine that if they talk about like child development and probably non-physical discipline methods.
Okay. I got you.
I think we shouldn't be, no matter what race or culture we're talking about, people shouldn't be using physical discipline. But that's because psychological studies show that physical discipline doesn't actually teach kids anything. And there's other ways, starting when kids are really young, to redirect. I think kids are, a lot of times young people are having kids and they maybe were not parented appropriately.
Because I got to get to this caller. Hold on 1 second, because I know you have limited time, but hold on. Let's take this caller. Caller, you're on Fresh Start Today, Nicole.
You know what? I appreciate you being on the air. I have a couple of things to say. I think the child welfare.
Can you speak louder into your phone, please, Nicole?
I think this is a big business. We're going to just sum it up like that. I think it's big business for the state of Wisconsin when we have so many children. You can have the exact same situation that happens in Milwaukee that happens in Waukesha. For instance, a special needs child in Waukesha had calls to CPS 5 to 7 times. When they did go out each time, this young girl who was in the basement in a room, a cement room with a cot, with a box of diapers, she was going to school every day with feces in her nails, on her hands, in her hair, and time after time,
I remember that story.
they allowed this young girl to stay in that home. And the stepfather was not secretive about how he felt about her and that that's where she was going to reside. Now, had that been in Milwaukee County on 45th Street or 27th Street, that mother would have been locked up, in jail, kids taken, all kind of things going on.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you,
Over time and time again, they turn a blind eye. And why not have assistance?
Now, listen, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, caller, thank you. On January 29, 2016, the Partnership Council meeting, the Milwaukee Child Welfare Partnership Council. Now, they're supposed to invite the community out. I'm not sure which community they're inviting, but I'm sure that most folks who are listening to this program have no clue what the Partnership Council is. And they are a citizen review panel for Child Protective Services that's comprised of a group of citizens, volunteers throughout the state. And they're mandated by law, 1995 Wisconsin Act 303, to have an advisory board to the state regarding child welfare services in Milwaukee County. They meet quarterly, and they are open to the public. Well, this one is going to take place on January 29, 2016, and you can contact the Division of Milwaukee Child Protective Services to on 26th Street. I'm sure that's where they're going to hold the meeting, on 26th in Wisconsin, and that's from noon to 2 p.m. Everybody listening to this program really need to have a presence because there's a lot that's going on, and we're not at the table. So the Milwaukee Child Welfare Partnership Council. And also get in contact with the department and let the department secretary know that you all have concern or have an interest in whoever they hire as their division administrator to come up with an executive plan to reduce the number of black children who are in foster care. Now, they're not responsible for those parents who say, I need to turn my kids over because there's not a lot of services out here on the front end and I just can't handle it, so I'm going to turn my kid over. But you all need to make those phone calls, and we'll have that number to the Division of Milwaukee Child Protective Services by the end of this program. And also want to give a shout out to EBS Transportation. They do a phenomenal job of being on time and getting where you need to go. EBS Transportation provides exceptional services, and you can call Eric over there at 414-527-1641. We have Christopher. Christopher, you're on the line. Do you have a brief question or comment as it relates to this topic?
Well, thank you for taking my call, and I think the information that you're providing regarding our children is of extreme importance, and I wanted to attempt to add something, and this is my opinion, due to my observation of being a black person in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the United States of America, the world. But I wanted to say this. I heard the Caucasian lady say something about not disciplining children physically. And I find that very peculiar to hear that come from a Caucasian person, because they use the whip to beat us into submission. But now their psychology is that when it comes to our children, we must spare the rod. And yet these same people claim Christianity, and that book that they supposedly stand upon or stand by says that if you spare the rod, you shall spoil the child. And finally, I'd like to say this. Ultimately, in my mind, when it comes to our children and Caucasian or Caucasoid people, their primary goal or objective is to find someone or something to make a pet out of, to instill their way of thinking so that they can reproduce more Uncle Toms, Polywanas, and Negro-minded, subservient black people. Black children should not be reared by Caucasian people, period. Thank you.
Now, thanks a lot, Christopher, for calling. Thank you for your comment. Now, I want to bring up something about Wisconsin's diversity plan. Wisconsin's supposed to have, and well, they do have. I mean, we'll have to, I don't know. The Wisconsin, what I want to say about it. I will say this. About a month and a half ago, I sent out a communication to the secretary. And I asked the secretary to explain to me something about the Wisconsin diversity plan. And I have it right here, so I'm getting that out because I always want to give people resources. The Wisconsin Child Placement Diversity Plan. So just one second. I don't have my things with me today. You all have to forgive me. It's the Wisconsin Child Diversity Plan. But in that plan, it's a 2-page document, maybe about 4 paragraphs or something like that. And in that paragraph, I mean, in there, it does not address anything about what is being done to reduce the number of kids in care and or to identify or recruit black homes for black children. Now, there is federal legislation that says every child welfare bureau should make an effort, have a plan to identify resources, caregivers for children that reflect the race of the children that are being removed. A concrete plan. You got to look up the Wisconsin Diversity Plan. The secretary didn't even call me back. She didn't respond via email, nothing, which was kind of disappointing because I love our secretary. I believe in our secretary.
You know, one thing that gets me on the therapeutic side of all of this, Jermaine, when these children are removed, there's a disconnect with the family. So then they go through this process of children having behavioral problems, not equating it to the fact that they've been removed from their biological parents. So there's another end of that, you know, the mental health part of this comes in, where it's
re-traumatized, and we're supposed to be a trauma-informed community. Well, we have Tania on the phone. Tania, do you have a brief question or comment? Tania?
Yes, I do.
And if you can turn your
radio down. You have to turn your radio down, Tania. We can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to comment on the fact of what Ms. Ann stated, and then just a little bit on the fact of what Dr. Adams was just stating. Regarding that the child being taken out of the home or taken away from the parent and the parent not being able to have any say-so in the matter, I think that is wrong. And then based on the reasoning that they've taken the child is totally out of order. But then again, I also have to agree with Dr. Adams when she's speaking about the children and their mental state when they're taken from what they know and then put into homes where they have to re-channel themselves to get familiarized with where they are. And then for some children it may work, but then for other kids and for the most, especially with our black children, it does not work. I've experienced this with a young mother, and going through this, it hardens my heart so much because she's trying so hard to get her children back, and the system is steady fighting
trying
her.
So hard.
Reasons to tell her that you can't have your kids because of this, and you can't have your kid back because of this. You didn't complete this, you didn't complete that. There's just a lot of just nonsense going on, and they look at her, well, she's single, she's African American, she's poor, uneducated. So guess what? We're not going to give your kid back because we feel like you're really not mentally capable of taking care of your children.
Gotcha. Thanks so much.
There's no book on being a parent.
Gotcha. Now, is this your first time listening to this program?
This is my first time, yes, listening to this program.
All right, hope you'll continue to listen. We got about 8 minutes left, and so I want to kind of address a couple of things. But thank you, Tania, for the comment, and thank you for being a supporter of Fresh Start Today.
Thank you.
Now, the foster and adoptive parent diligent, and I'm going to use that word, I'm going to emphasize that word, diligent recruitment plan for 2015 to 2019, which is a 4-year plan, Child and Family Services Plan. Now, diligent recruitment. Wisconsin has a process for and is committed to recruiting foster and adoptive parents that reflect the racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity of the children in out-of-home care. State permanency consultants work with counties to identify children needing targeted recruitment efforts so that these children can also move to permanence in a more timely fashion. Now let's go down. Recruitment and retention. Wisconsin statewide recruitment goals. In collaboration with counties and tribes, DSP works with public, private, and tribal agencies to develop a tool of waiting families to meet the diverse needs of children in out-of-home care. Specific strategies that are used include the following. This is where I want you all to listen. A consistent statewide recruitment campaign with materials that can be used by local agencies to build recognition gained from the statewide activities. During 2012, billboards were released to support recruitment of foster homes for Indian children through collaboration with Wisconsin tribes. In 2013, I know somebody's mad with me today. In 2013, a new general campaign was released in May, and the billboards to support foster homes for Indian children were, and here's the key word, continued. What's my concern about that? Because when you read the 2 pages, it don't say nothing about black children who disproportionately, not just locally, but on a national level, our disproportionality rate is unbelievable, is unacceptable. So how can they have a 5 or 4-year recruitment plan that does not even address, the needs of the population of children that make up the most of their client base?
Mm-hmm.
It's unheard of.
Is that an accident?
Look, I keep telling y'all that the child welfare system is not broken, it's designed.
Mm-hmm.
And people go believe that. And if it's not designed, then that means we have to look at, why do we keep getting the same results year after year, year after year, decade after decade? Because 70% or 68.2% black children in this local foster care community cannot be acceptable. So why has it been acceptable for the last 7-8 years? Just go on the website.
Fear for a lot of people. But what I wanted to say about when the attorney was talking about reading slavery books and all of those things, people don't understand slavery was by force. It just like foster care is in a way like slavery, because they're forcing black people or putting them in a position to give up their kids. You know what I mean? So,
and then let's talk about, because Attorney Jane, are you on the phone? And this is going to be our last contribution. We want to close off this because my blood pressure done went high. I need something. Attorney Jane, because Leola Williams, who is a therapist with New Choices, and for those people who need services, they can call. What number?
444-8445, area code 414.
You speak so fast.
414-444-8445.
I was talking to an attorney who has functioned as a attorney for parents who are considered to be indigent in a child welfare case. And this attorney today, and I want to know if you know anything about this, Attorney Jane, but this attorney said to me that the county pays them $40 an hour to represent a case. $40 an hour. And
it'd be the state of Wisconsin in a CPR case?
Yes. That's the state of Wisconsin. $40.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I was reading some literature that says that some attorneys are not motivated if you figure that attorney can make somewhere between $150 an hour to $200 an hour, what motivation would there be to send a case to trial status for $40 an hour, and you may have to put in, let's say, 50 hours a case? Preparing for the trial, interviewing folks, preparing your client. You know, is it a cost benefit for attorneys to really put forth A+ legal representation for what the state is paying? I'll let you respond.
Well, I mean, I can say just in general that the more it shouldn't be this way, and it isn't for me, because most of my cases that I take are with the state or the county, which is about the same rate. And, well, with the state it is. All the state appointments are $40 an hour. That some lawyers, the ones that charge $200 or $300 an hour to their private clients, are going to put more hours in, or billable hours in on those other cases, because they can get $200 for an hour on that case versus $40 an hour on the other case.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it shouldn't be that way. Some attorneys do that. However, every attorney has the ethical responsibility to prepare for a case and to zealously advocate for your client, and be competent. And there's a whole lot of ethical guidelines that attorneys are supposed to follow. But you're right, the state does have a problem too, because not every attorney does want to take these cases because of the low reimbursement rate.
So is it easier to get the parent to take a plea? And taking a plea mean, okay, well, comply or cooperate with child welfare, and then you put condition services in place, and then hopefully you'll get your kids back. Is it easier just...
I went to the state termination of parental rights training for lawyers just recently. And the trainers there were really stressing that if you want to try to talk a parent into voluntarily terminating their rights, then this is not, you shouldn't be taking these kind of cases. Because these are the kind of cases where you really are going to have to go and fight, and because that's the right thing to do. And that's
really
what your client wants.
Excuse me. They really talk you into giving up your jurisdiction for a jury trial. They don't really want you to have a jury trial within 30 days, because they really go after, not just because they black, but because they poor as well, or because if they have a disability.
Now, how old are you?
22.
Miss Ann, you're 22. You know
Yes.
a whole lot, and that's because you've been in this system.
Yes.
Okay. So to give up your jurisdiction, and we've talked about how the parents, if I were parents, I would go in and say, I want a jury trial. As soon as they look at me, I want a jury trial.
They won't give it to you because they feel that you can't afford a lawyer because you don't have enough money. They go after moms that they know that's poor, that can't afford a lawyer. So they give them the public defender that really don't work with you. They really work with the workers
state.
and act like they're working with you, but they're really working against you.
So you feel like you just got an uphill battle. You just can't win, for no matter if you keep going to classes, keep having psychological evaluations, if you keep going to supervised visits with your children, it's never enough.
Yes, and they told me that they was going to give me my child back November 30th. They told me that they was going to give me my child back on November 30th, but instead of returning, the DA, the guardian ad litem, and my lawyer all signed a consent saying, we'll return your child on November 30th. You give up your jurisdiction, we'll return your child.
Give up your jurisdiction.
I'm finna get my child returned. So I gave up my jurisdiction thinking that I'm finna get my child returned.
Do you mean your right? Because your jurisdiction is the power over.
Yes,
like the
where
court has power over something.
Where your child goes. Say so over where your child goes.
Attorney Jane, what did you say?
I'm not sure exactly what she's referring to.
about
I know
jurisdiction.
in a CHIP case that
Yeah.
you have to request a jury trial right away in the beginning.
And see, but a lot of
Otherwise, you
people
waive
don't know
right.
that. Attorney Jane, a lot of people don't know that initial hearing, that initial appearance, even though you're just meeting your judge and you're just meeting your lawyer, you need to go into that situation saying, I want a jury trial.
And who knows?
And again, now this typically happens within 48 hours of removal of a case. So we have to look, therapists, we have to look at...
No. I'm not talking about that. That would be the temporary physical custody hearing. At the initial appearance, if there is a CHIPS petition filed,
Yes.
if they're trying to have somebody over a dispositional order and work with an ongoing social worker, then that hearing, that very first initial appearance. So after they have the 48-hour one, and then usually they'll say, yeah, we're going to take temporary physical custody.
All right,
The
we
next
need to take a
hearing
break. I was just
after
told by
that-
the engineer we got to take a break. We'll be right back after this brief break.
This is Jermaine reporting from Fresh Starts WBCM, Wisconsin Black Children Matter. Did you know that the number of black children in Milwaukee's foster care community continues to rise? According to the Department of Children and Families' most recent annual report, black children made up 68.2% of Milwaukee's foster kids. Many of these children are not only removed from their family and siblings, but are placed in families and communities that do not reflect or honor their race, culture, or heritage. Fresh Start is an agency that is committed to serving and advocating for black children. In order to meet the needs of this growing population, we need more black families in the Milwaukee area that love and celebrate black children. To become a licensed, culturally responsive foster parent with Fresh Start, you must be 21 years old, married or single with a stable income, clear several criminal background checks, and complete 36 hours of pre-licensing training. To learn more about other qualifications, call 414-351-1100. That's 414-351-1100. Again, this is Jermaine reporting from Fresh Start, WBCM, Wisconsin Black Children Matter.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Fresh Start today, and we're talking about just what black families go through with dealing with child welfare, not just in Milwaukee, but across the country. And the topic today is taken, Black Families Under Siege. And we have a friend of the show online. She's been on here before, Dr. Patricia McManus. Good afternoon, Dr. McManus.
Good afternoon. Look, the reason I called was because I know what the young lady was trying to talk about. What they do is, once they've gone through that 72-hour hearing, then what they do is their lawyers get together. They talk to them because they can have a jury trial for disposition, whether they, in other words, saying, did they have the right to take their kids in the first place? They get them to waive that jury right. This is what she's talking about, because we've had many clients where that has been the case. And I'm like, oh, my God, they told you to, yeah, and they'll tell them something like, oh, you're getting your kids back, so there's no reason to go to jury trial. And that's not true, because that's not what they intend to do. They don't even know at that point whether that's true. So I knew they're trying to struggle to figure out what she was talking about. So that's what she's talking about. That's done routinely, where they talk them into waiving a jury trial on the front end before the TPR.
Okay.
And they basically waive the trial, which means that they're basically saying that the state had a right to take the child. And see, again, you talked about the cost of lawyers who get paid. They don't want to. There's a lot of time for a jury trial. Getting $40 an hour, they don't want to pay for that. So they really are. It's unfortunate, but that is happening a lot, where they actually talk them into waiving that trial to say that, and basically they don't say they're guilty, but they waive it, which is the same thing, literally.
Got you. But you know, Dr.
Okay.
McManus, what organization or program are you with? Because I know you are a community resource, particularly for this population of women and families.
Right. The Black Health Coalition of Wisconsin, and the number is 933-0064. We've been working with these cases for almost 10 years now, and for the most part, if we get them early enough, we've been pretty successful. Once it goes to TPR, I just don't even take TPR cases anymore because it is so heartbreaking. But if we can work with them before it gets to TPR and the clients work with us, we have a pretty good rate of them getting their kids back.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dr. McManus, because we got about 20 more minutes, but thank you so much.
Okay.
Now, this young lady, you were talking about something. We always have rich conversation offline, but you're talking about the birth of your child and the detention removal, so kind of share that with the audience.
My other two kids, they were removed at birth due to neglect and abuse.
At birth? Not when you say at birth, you mean after your birth and they went home?
Right after I had them.
So were you still in the hospital, or were you at home when they took the kids?
I was still in the hospital.
So how were you charged with abuse and neglect if your child is, if you're in the hospital? I'm not understanding.
Right, and I never even got a chance with them. Right after I had them, they came in, gave me a piece of paper saying we're moving your child due to.
Did you already have other kids in the system?
No, my first baby stays with Dad. Dad got her out the system.
Oh, so they're trying to. Oh, okay. So it's becoming clearer. It's gonna be a lovely day. I can see clearly now. Wow, that's powerful. Because I was talking with Dr. Stacy Patton, who wrote a book called Mean Old Yesterday, and she's actually going to be presenting at the Colored Child Welfare Conference on May 17th. And what we're talking about is this removal of children at birth. And what you said just kind of clicked. But I want to talk to Attorney Jane. And for those who would like to join this conversation, this is a great time for you to pick up the phone. And she's gone? Oh, Attorney Jane left us because when we were talking earlier, and we've mentioned on the show that the state of Wisconsin, not just foster parents, get off this tip about foster parents getting all this money. Foster parents ain't getting no whole lot of money for nobody's kids. We need to start looking at folk in administrative position that's making upwards of 100,000 plus.
They split it down once they get adopted off.
Well, and what I want to say is that every state in this country gets an incentive. They get an adoption incentive. They get a payment for the number of kids per kids that are adopted. And that is why we have to ask the question, is the spirit of child welfare one that promotes and encourages reunification with birth family, or is this about adopting? And I don't know. I don't want to answer that question. I mean, I have my personal beliefs, and this is a training session that allows the community to talk. We have someone on the line right now. Tania, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My question is, with all this being said, exactly what is it that we can do to help someone like Miss Ann in her situation?
This is what I got you, because at the beginning I was saying, you know what, the Partnership Council meeting, which is on January 29th, 2016, you need to rally all your people, call them, and say, hey, because 70% that could be your nephew, your niece tomorrow, your cousin, your neighbor. You need to be present. It's from noon to 2 o'clock, and that's interesting because a lot of folks are working at noon to 2 o'clock.
Right.
But see, when the system will not meet after 5 because you know what? It's not convenient for those of us who work in the system.
Correct.
But if we're really trying to engage the community in a meaningful way, then we need to meet at a time that is appropriate for most folks. And so the birth parents can't be there because they're trying to fight to get the kids back, and they got to try to, look for a job. They got to go to parent-teacher conference. They got to do parent meetings. We call it anger management. They got to do counseling, and they got to do supervised visits, and just a plethora of services that they have to engage themselves in. But I'll say I think you need to write the secretary. I think you need to get in contact with your elected officials, even if they are on a city level. It amazes me that city and county elected officials don't feel that they need to be engaged in a conversation with the state level folk, because state controls and manages and provide oversight to child welfare. But if your constituents are representing the majority of those folks that are being removed from foster care, it seems to me that you will want to be at the table and say, what's going on here?
Correct.
So I think that's another big thing that we have to do for all of us church folks out there. We need to bring the right reverends to the tables. All of them, Bishop Tutu, every last one, the Pope, bring them all to the table and say, listen, there's a lot of grandmothers in your congregations. There is a lot of mothers in your congregation whose children have been removed by the system. We need to facilitate or coordinate a meaningful relationship between child welfare and the faith-based community.
I agree.
So there's a lot that we can do. And guess what? We don't even have to pass legislation. We don't have to march. We don't have to gather 5,000 signatures. Right. So those are real tangible things. But I think, that we need to do that. And if you know families, if you see abuse or neglect in your family, because there's a law that's about to come down, Senate Bill 325, 326 is going to take that 68.2% of kids in care, is going to take it from 68.2 really to 88.2. It's going to have a tremendous impact on black children and families. So, yeah. So what I need you to do, and others who listen to this program, one is keep calling this program, because I got folk that listen to this program that's been assigned to listen to this program on a state level.
Okay.
So those are things that we can do very tangible. But those family members that you feel that there's some issues going on, sit down and talk, put together an intervention, because once your kids come into the system, it's hard to get them out. And the child who comes into the system is not the same child that's returned if he's returned back home.
True.
All right. Thank you for calling, Tania. We have another caller, 414-444-5250. Again, you all need to go to the Partnership Council meeting. And let me say this, because Fresh Start is a black-owned, black-operated foster care agency, and we are really concerned about issues that impact black children and families. We have been on the front lines fighting for our children from the inside, and you all cannot imagine how much slack and pushback that we get because we dare to take a stand. Well, in order to keep kids from being removed and placed out of county, it has been said that we don't have enough black homes in the black community to keep black kids in Milwaukee County. So we got to send them out to Waupaca. We got to send them out to Irma. We got to send them out there to Columbus. I can't tell you all the places that I have driven to get black children back into the community. Well, we do need more black homes, because then folks can't say we don't have enough resources. And we would love to have you a part of our foster family. You can call 414-351-1100. 414-351-1100. And we'll be more than willing to partner with you in a real meaningful way to help take care of our kids. While we are yet fighting and trying to negotiate some better terms for child welfare to be done so that our children don't even have to come into care, and certainly not at the rate that they've been coming in. So again, you can call 414-351-1100. That's Fresh Start Family Services. So let's go back to this conversation. And feel free to call 414-444-5250.
Well, you know what? Dealing with this situation with Miss Ann here, I can see that she's going through a lot of anxiety now because she's afraid that this child that she's currently carrying is at risk of being stripped from her at birth.
And, you know, that's kind of funny, because the other lady that was supposed to be on this program, she talked about how she's so anxious and her nerves are so bad that she got to keep her kids with her all the time because she's afraid that they're going to be taken.
Yes.
You know, so you're carrying a child and you're concerned that when they have, because you've already had 2 experiences where they removed.
Right, and they also said that I was unstable and unfit, and I was stable. I got my first apartment at 19. I was stable. I had their car seat. I had their diaper bags, bottles, wipes, socks, everything for them to be taken home. And I walked out of that hospital with an empty car seat and some of their new outfits that I had in the diaper bag for them. And I went home with no child.
All right, listen, we have Meech on the line. Meech, and I got to hear from Brother JT. I ain't heard from JT in a long time, and I need to hear from JT. I'd be thinking about JT. Brother Meech, you are on the Fresh Start today. You have a brief question or comment as relates to this conversation?
Yeah. You know something? That's a heartbreaking story to hear that young lady, to see them confiscate that child, those children at birth. And even if she had children in this system prior, this is a new. That's why I think it's, when people are in that situation, they should have their baby out of state, because Wisconsin is known for gaffling up children. I mean, these are legal kidnappers. And I want to ask you a question: what do you have in place for prevention? First of all, I think we need to set up some kind of legal fund to have some real lawyers, because those
guardian ad litem.
Guardian items, the attorneys?
Yeah, the guardian items and these little wraparound people, they are nothing more than they're henchmen for that system. So are you guys setting up some sort of legal
Look, I don't set up jack. I'm just a private contractor. They could take my contract tomorrow. So.
But you seem to be so concerned.
I am really concerned, but you know what? It's only one voice. I need the NAACP, national and local, because this is a national problem.
It's a national problem, but
I need the Urban League. I need all these community organizations, every alder person to begin to ask questions
Have you called a meeting, a community meeting with these people?
Now, I have not called. Well, you know what? I'll take it back. We had a community meetings and it's been a couple years now, over at Heart Love, and there was about 400 some folks in attendance. I do keep in contact and update, like State Representative Latanya Johnson, who's out on the out there on the front line. There's Senator Lena Taylor, and there's also Senator Nakia Harris, who's well informed about this and is responding to constituents. But we need the brothers to stand up.
Okay,
we need the pastors. You know what? Go ahead.
I'm gonna get out of here because I'm talking too long. But who do you talk to about setting up a community meeting concerning this, man?
Call me offline, 414-351-1100.
I'll call the
radio
I'll
station.
call back and get it.
All right, Mitch. Again, my phone number is 414-351-1100. 414-351-1100, extension 150. Do we have a caller online? All right. So I do think it's important. Now, let's go back, because this is a training. It's conversation, but it's also training. And I don't want more problems than what I already be getting on a day-to-day basis. So do you think, Miss Ann, that black folks have parents in the system, period, but particularly black folks, because that's the majority, and that's what I'm talking to. That's where I come from. That's my community. Mm-hmm. I am who I am.
That's all you see on Facebook is little black babies. You don't see not one white baby. It's a social working for only, and it shows only light-skinned babies or black babies. You don't see not one white baby on there.
Well, they make up the majority
for
of
you to get a job for social working.
Okay, I got. But let me say this. Do you? Let me ask you this question. Do you think that there is a distrust issue? That there is a trust issue between black mothers who are involved in the system and the system?
Yes.
And why do you think that that trust issue is there?
Because they'll try to reverse the bully gangbang. They'll try to talk you out of your
now,
trial.
you got a bully gangbang. You speaking some young folk language. I'm getting older.
No,
they gang up on you?
The lawyers, the DAs, the guardian ad litems, they all gang up on you.
So do you feel that you're working against? You know, the odds are against you. Do you feel that? You do.
Yes.
I was talking to a mother the other day, and she was talking about how sometimes she just felt like giving up.
I feel like that sometimes too, but I know that my kids need me, so I know if it takes for me my last breath for me to get my kids, then that's what I'm gonna have to do. But my kids need me right now, so. And
you're currently going through some type of litigation, or you're looking. Oh, well, okay. This is what I need you to do. Now, if somebody that's in the community who feel that they have the expertise and services where they can reach out and support you, I'm going to ask that they give me a call, and then I'll put them in contact with you. 414-351-1100, extension 150. We're going to go take a brief break, and then we're going to come back and close out this segment. You've been listening to Fresh Start today with your guest, Jermaine Reed, and we have special in-studio guests, Miss Leola Williams, and also Miss Ann and Sean Roby, co-hosts. So we'll be right back after this break. Good afternoon. Let us bow our heads for a word of prayer, because I'm going to need y'all to pray for me. I might end up vanishing, disappearing. But y'all know, if something happens to them, they got the little man, they got him. Y'all know who got him. But I enjoy talking because, I don't take a whole lot of stuff too serious. You just got to keep fighting, keep moving, doing what's right, stand on the side of what's right. It's always the right time to do what's right. So, that's in the spirit of Dr. King, But we need folk that's going to be a voice that's going to speak up. Tyrone, you are on Fresh Start today. We got about 30 seconds. Can you give us a brief question or comment? Go ahead, my brother.
I'm kind of familiar with the sister's situation. I don't know exactly what it is, but she just has to stay strong and stay prayerful and go through the system and do what you got to do. They have stacked the cards against most of these sisters by snatching their babies.
Snatching them.
And put us in situations where they can't get them back. And the child deserves to be with their mothers.
Yes, and so we need the community to embrace her, wrap their arms around her, and pray for her and so many other sisters that are like her. Pray. Okay, so we do definitely need to strategize. Is there another call? All right. So thank you all for tuning in to Fresh Start today. It's been grand. We had a special extended edition today, and want to say thank you to Keon, the greatest engineer on this side of the city, at least. I don't know Wisconsin, but at least on this side of the city. and videographer Tony Cash. And again, if you're interested in providing culturally responsive foster care services. Now, see, we got a thing where we license even African Americans, and sometimes we can be on something different, and we can sometimes cause more injury to children who look just like us. Sometimes our motivations aren't pure. So if you just want the money, I don't want you to call. Do not call Fresh Start. Call them people around the corner. But we don't want people who are just in it for the money, even though you don't get a whole lot of money. There still is a right way to treat children and care for children. But if you want to provide loving, supportive care, please call Fresh Start 414-351-1100, extension 150. Fresh Start at 414-351-1100. You all be well, be safe, and be warm. Until next week.